gentlemen, this is Cassidy Cotton with Simply Vegas, bringing you your September monthly market report. And as usual, we're going to jump right into the news. So, since the last time that we spoke, at least here, till today, there's been a lot of things that have happened. Very obviously, the yield curve has inverted. And if you don't know what that means, I really kind of recommend you look it up. It really has to do with long-term and short-term bonds and demand and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, what it really means is that it's a signal of a recession. And then on August 14th, the stock market dropped like 800 points, and it's been bouncing up and down a lot since that time. Having said that, that's caused a lot more talk about recession. And I just want everyone to feel very comfortable with this issue. And that's what I'm going to jump into in this monthly market report here. Again, for September, we talked a lot about it last month. But anyway, what I really actually want to jump into is how this is going to affect housing prices, because at the end of the day, I'm a real estate agent and I want to talk about how this is affecting housing prices, and this is what people seem to be concerned about. So we'll take first a look at the FHFA quarterly report, the year-over-year change in prices. Every single region, every one of these regions, guys, shows appreciation, every one. So there's some talk that, because of this recession, that there's the appreciation obviously has decelerated, but people are out there saying that there's depreciation. And guys, that's not necessarily the case. That's not what the data says. And I think people may actually be misinterpreting that. A slowdown in appreciation does not mean that there's actually depreciation. They're two different things. And guys, if we look at it on a state-by-state basis, there's not a single state that has shown any depreciation either. Obviously, if appreciation has slowed, it wasn't what it was last year, but we're not seeing prices decline, is basically what I'm trying to get across. And I want to also keep in mind that in most of these states, including our own, we're still over the historical norm of 3.5. So, that's 3.5% appreciation. So it's actually still strong in that standpoint. Now, I'm not saying that it's appreciation across the board. There are still some individual cities, some individual metros. San Jose, I mentioned that last month. They're seeing some difficulties there. San Francisco is at a 0, right? So a leveling off in pricing. But remember, a few months back, I was talking about San Diego, and they've seemed to rebound. So it's really kind of interesting. So across the board, generally, we are seeing appreciation. You're saying, okay, well, dude, you're talking about all these California cities. What about what's going on where we live? Okay, well, this is our median home price over the last number of years. And I took it all the way back to 2010, so we actually see a depreciation number going up to 120 to 119. And anyway, so we've actually jumped up, and this slide's a little bit off. It's actually supposed to be, these are numbers for August. But you've actually seen that we didn't have that same jump that we had over that prior year, but still into this year, we still see an appreciation up. And so Las Vegas is actually kind of staying in line, right, with the rest of the country on that basis as well. And I think what's more critical and what we really need to look at is where you're going to actually start to see more variation is what type of home do you own. And I'm not talking about architecture type, I'm talking about price range, guys. And what this slide is going to show us is that from all price points, year-over-year change in price is going to be 3.4%. But the lower priced homes are still showing a higher appreciation. Obviously, it's a larger buyer pool. There's more people with wages that can afford home prices in this range. There's a lot more options of what you can do in this range. Low to middle, we start to see less, and then obviously it declines with your higher home price. And I kind of touched base on that in a survey that was done last month, I believe, about what expectations are for your higher priced homes and that sort of thing. But as the buyer pool shrinks a bit, that's difficult. And it's interesting too, because builder demand is higher in these areas and less in these areas too, due to price of lumber, due to price of labor, due to a lot of those factors that, and due to price of land, due to a lot of the factors that builders actually struggle with. So so they actually add more inventory here as well too, which makes it a little bit more difficult from a supply and demand standpoint. But year over year supply, actually, interestingly enough, you would expect it to be the exact inverse. But what we see here, and I wanted to share this, is a little bit different. In your lower priced homes, you're going to see that you actually have a little bit higher supply. And what this is that a lot of markets, a lot of homes are hitting the market and they're not actually in the best possible condition. So there are those that stay on the market, and then there's the turnover. Now, I also talked a little bit about the phenomenon that we're seeing when it comes to investment purchases, right? We were thinking that we're seeing all this tick up in investment purchases, and these got to be your hedge funds, these got to be these large institutional buyers, but those are also your mom and pop investors that are that are out there flipping homes as well too. So what's actually happened is what you might start to see here with some of that inventory and some of these transactions is stuff that's really distressed, really not marketable per se, getting bought up and then put back on the market as well. You know, people are not looking for sweat equity. It's something my dad used to talk about. Oh, you sweat equity and you build it into what you want it to be and you get to it that way. And that's not necessarily a thing that we're hearing from buyers these days. A lot of times folks just want a finished product. When they move in, they want the move is stressful enough and they want to step into home. You know, they don't want to step into a project that they actually have to deal with. So it's really interesting is that you would expect the supply to be a direct inverse, but it's not. And I think that's that phenomenon, that caveat that I touched on here this month as well as last month too. It's interesting. What are we talking about? Okay, yes. Okay, this is home prices according to Molly Boso, and she's the principal economist over at CoreLogic. She said home prices have steadily increased since 2011, creating record amounts of home equity and putting home ownership in a good position to weather further downturns, right? And now the reason I want to talk about this is that we're going to see studies out there saying that mortgage debt is at an all-time high, and that's true. It is, but that's only one part of the overall thing. Mortgage debt is at an all-time high because we're purchasing more and more real estate at higher and higher prices because we've had a run-up in the market, but there's also more equity out there, guys, and I want to, and that's the part of the dang it, we're having PowerPoint problems. I'm gonna go at it this way. Nah, I got us. Anyway, just working on this. Anywho, the average equity, all right, has also increased, okay, on a year over year. So it's interesting. We've seen these huge chunks of equity being gained in the market, even through the first quarter, guys. Through the first quarter of this year, people made just over $6,000 on their homes. You know, so equity continues to increase and increase and increase, and people are actually getting more wealth out of it. Now, if we take a look at it overall, how much equity people actually have is that we've actually had a huge run-up since 2011. I mean, a huge run-up since 2011. And this, guys, these are billions, right? So there's $6.3 billion in equity that people have in their home in this current market. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a very different situation than what we were dealing with before in 2008. So, with that alone, with that sheer amount of equity, with 50%, when people having over 50% equity in their home, that's not a situation where people are just going to begin walking away from houses. There's actual money in those houses. So it's a much different situation. And having said that, let's even talk about it from this standpoint, the negative equity. So in 2010, we saw 25.3% homes with a negative equity number, and that's down to 4.1% which was 4.3 last year. But that number continues to decrease and constrict, which makes it a dramatically different, okay, than the situation that we were dealing with before. Now, with incomes up and current mortgage rates at about 0.8 percentage point below what they were a year ago. And guys, I'm getting buyers that are getting mortgages, you know, with an interest rate that starts with 3 all month. It's really ridiculous what's happening with rates. Home sales should have a better sales pace than in the second half of 2019 than a year earlier, leading to the quickening price growth over the next year. So, you know, having said that, you know, with us here, so there's two good things here. Number one is that appreciation is still going to be there, and number two is that the amount of sales, because mortgage rates are going down, will start to tick up through September, October, November, and December. And then Ralph McLaughlin, who's the deputy chief economist over at CoreLogic, he says, you know, we see the cool down, flattening, or even reversing course in the coming months, and expect the housing market to continue to come into balance. And basically, they're forecasting a year-over-year change in price that's positive. So this is positive. This is going forward, right? So this is what they're actually anticipating, not only across the board. And guys, keep in mind, I've said this before, I've said this over the last few months, our average price appreciation is 3.5%. So there are still some areas that are outpacing that. And the one area of concern here is Texas. I mean, you can obviously see it, it's bright orange, and that's because it's below 2%. They anticipate below 2% appreciation. But guys, keep in mind, again, no one's talking about depreciation, okay? Two separate issues: recession, which is a slowdown in GDP for 2 quarters, and price depreciation is housing. The two can be correlated, but don't always have to be. Actually, more times than not, and I'll show this slide a little bit later, I've shown it before, they're actually not correlated in any sort of direct way. Skipping slides, getting crazy. So, people have asked, so now, and this, I've shown this one before too. So this is, these are a number of different sources, right? They give out forecasts in terms of what they think are going to happen in terms of home prices over the next few years. The Home Price Expectation Survey, obviously they're expecting us to finish nicely this year, a slowdown in 20 and then ticking back up in 21 and 22. The Mortgage Bankers Association, again, they expect us to finish strong this year, okay? Tick down to about a normal place next year, and then slow down a little bit more in 2021. Now, these last four, Zelman Associates, Freddie Mac, National Association of Realtors, and Fannie Mae, each of these guys are saying we still anticipate some positive appreciation, even in some areas if it's low, right? And just sticks with what average appreciation has been. Fannie Mae expects a really big push at the end of this year, which is interesting. But guys, I think the critical takeaway from this is that there's no red numbers. There's no one, none of these sources, and these are economists that study how the economy is going to affect the real estate market and all these other factors. None of these guys are anticipating a depreciation in pricing. And I think that's really important. Because here's the deal, man. I put out my monthly market report. I filmed it on the 10th, and I put it out on the 12th. These things are long, and they take a long time to load and all that good stuff. But nevertheless, I put that out, and then 2 days later, boom, we start to see the stock market drop, right? And then you can't pick up a financial newspaper, you can't read a financial website without seeing the word recession. I'm sitting in front of it and I'm trying to, talk. Anyway, but without seeing the word recession. And guys, here's the deal. This is something that is coming from media outlets to try to get clicks, to try to get you to buy newspapers. It's a word that motivates people to basically pay attention and give them what it is that they're looking for. And guys, the word, Guys, we've had the longest economic run-up in U.S. history, and it's bound to end at a certain point, man. And I'm saying that what we're talking about is a slowdown in GDP for 2 consecutive quarters. That's it, man. Nothing else. I don't think that's anything to be afraid of. So, having said that, I talk about this and put it out there because a lot of people, I got confronted by a couple of my fellow real estate professionals, said, hey man, by talking about recession, you're adding fuel to the fire. I don't think so. So what are we supposed to do? Act like we don't see these news reports? Act like they don't happen? Or really dig into them, start to see what the data says, start to see what everyone else says, and see how this is actually going to affect house prices? Because at the end of the day, when you're talking about a real estate purchase, people are concerned about house pricing because they're concerned about affordability, right? And there's more to it. So, having said that, we have to look, and people are saying, hey, when's the next U.S. recession going to begin? When's the next U.S. recession going to begin? So, we had the Wall Street Journal in here last month. I took that out this month because these are all quarterly, all right? All these sources are done quarterly. Pulseonomics, Duke Survey, CFOs, and the National Association of Business Economic Members. I took Wall Street Journal because they have new data coming out soon, and I want to have that new data. I don't want to just rely on the old data. But ultimately, what we're seeing is a majority of people think that the next U.S. recession is going to occur either at the end of this year, right, or next year. They think that slowdown in the economy, in GDP, is going to happen at any point in time over these next couple of years, right? And I condensed all those, into this format just to make it simpler to look at. So basically, 60% of the people that look at this stuff, look at economics, say that they think that the next U.S. Recession will begin, okay, in the next couple of years, all right? And I bring that point up to bring this up. And this is from Ali Wolf, and she's the Director of Economic Research at Myers Research. And she says, with people having PTSD from the last time, they're still afraid of buying at the wrong time. And guys, again, I really kind of make the point that when you hear the word recession in the news, when you see it on the headlines, when you see it at the newspaper, when you see it on your favorite website or whatever it is, kind of keep in mind that recession is just talking about a slowdown in GDP for 2 quarters, and it's not necessarily talking about what happened in 2008. So having said that, I really feel like that's a critical thing. Now, what happens as a result of hearing that and seeing that is people, they get in their feelings, right? No other way to say it. I'm just going to have fun with it. Look, so 53% of shoppers right now, this is something that, who is this, Realtor.com did a week ago, right? They said 53% of people expect a recession to occur in the next 2 years, right? Very few beyond that, right? And these are current home shoppers. And having said that, because, and this is the same survey, 57% said that the next recession would be as bad or worse than 2008. 57%. That's almost 6 out of 10 people that are shopping for homes believe this right now. And guys, I feel like I'm not hearing enough from the real estate professionals educating the public, saying that, you know what, a recession does not mean that we're going to face the same troubles that we did last time, and because we're not putting in the proper frame and we're not talking about the numbers and we're not talking about what economists are saying. And people are nervous. And that's why I'm here giving you the great information. And I was even here last month saying the same thing. I did the whole thing on recession, giving you good information, and because I don't want people to be afraid. I want them to be able to put things logically in the proper frame based upon what the numbers are saying and what a lot of the economists out there are saying. And the percentage of customers who should halt their home search if a recession occurs would be 55%, guys. And I think that this is a media hysteria thing, right? And I think that I think one of my primary goals here with these monthly market reports is to kind of put things in a frame as to where it makes sense so that you can make the right decision that you need to make, whether when it comes to your real estate goals, whether you're buying, selling, upsizing, downsizing. I don't know what it is, but I need you to kind of at least be in a situation where you can kind of say, hey man, this makes a lot of sense to me, because at the end of the day, man, an economic slowdown is just an economic slowdown, right? And I don't think it's anything for us to be afraid of. And it's not necessarily the same thing as a housing crash, right? Now, that brings me to Jeff Tucker, Zillow economist. He says, the housing crash during the Great Recession left a lasting impression. But as we look ahead to the next recession, it's important to recognize how unusual those conditions were that caused the last one and what's different about the housing market today. Ladies and gentlemen, right now, as a nation, we have about 4 months supply. Back in 06, 07, we had about a 9-month supply, okay? So rather, he says, rather than risky borrowers taking on adjustable rate mortgages, we have buyers with sterling credit taking out predictable 30-year fixed rate mortgages. The housing market supply is much less risky than it was 15 years ago. All right, and this is the information that I'm trying to get out there. So there's something else that we can't, and this was from the Urban Institute study. 37.1% of houses in this country right now don't even have a mortgage. They don't even have a mortgage on them. So here's the deal. You walk out your front door, you look to your right, you look to your left. One of y'all ain't got a mortgage. Either it's you, the neighbor to the right, or the neighbor to the left. If you're living at the end of the street and you want to be a smart aleck, then look at the guy across the way. I'm just saying, 1 of 3 doesn't have a mortgage on it, guys. This is very, very different than what we were dealing with before. I mean, people were using home equity like an ATM machine. They used no-doc loans to just get and churn stuff through, man. I'm saying 1/3 of the houses on your block right now don't have mortgages, right? And this is, and here's something that George Ratchie, I don't even know how to pronounce the dude's name. I just know that he said this quote, and I'm giving it to you. So ha 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 ha. All right, this is going to be a much shorter recession than the last one. I don't think the next recession will be a repeat of 2008. The housing market is in a much better position. And I'm really getting this word out, guys. And I've used this slide before, and I'm going to use it again. These are the last 5 recessions that we've had, okay? And you can see from this slide, during 3 out of the last 5 recessions, we've seen housing prices increase. In 1991, during that recession, we only saw a decrease of 1.9%. And I think one of the quotes that I used earlier was talking about the PTSD from this, guys. And the point that I cannot make loudly enough is that we don't have the same economic conditions, we don't have the same housing conditions, we don't have the same lending conditions, we don't have the same debt conditions that we did when we faced this crisis 11 years ago, right? And I can't say that loud enough. Now, the probability of home price changes being lower in 2 years, all right? Now, red means there's a moderate, right? Light blue means there's a low probability, and the medium blue means there's a minimal probability. So these are probabilities, right, from housing and mortgage, from the housing and mortgage market review of housing prices being lower in 2 years than they are now. So there's no one that they're even saying, you know what, there's a moderate shot of that happening. It's either low or minimal, you know. And guys, I'm just saying this and I'm beating this point home because I don't hear anyone else in the industry making this point to you. And here's the deal. If you have real estate goals, you need to be able to put this stuff in the proper perspective and not let the media's drive to sell newspapers get you to make financial decisions based in fear, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to do the best thing for your family, right? And at a time like now, when you have interest rates as low as they are, with affordability being where it is, I just can't see a logical way where you could say, hey man, yeah, you know what, I want to make a move, but I don't think it's the right time to make a move. Well, why not? Why? Because the newspaper said that there's going to be a recession? Yeah, there's an inverted yield curve, man. You know what I mean? That means GDP is likely going to slow down for a couple quarters at the very least, man. That's not really the same thing as a correction in housing prices. So having said that, I used this slide last month, and this is Mark Fleming from First American. He says if the 30-year fixed rate mortgage declines just a fraction more, right? Consumer house buying power would reach its highest level in almost 20 years, guys. And here's Mark Fleming this month, right? Consumer house buying increased by $44,000, 12.2% last month compared with 1 year ago. More than enough to overcome the 7% increase of nominal house price appreciation. So what you're seeing is house buying power through affordability is actually outpacing price increases. And in fact, house buying power is the highest that it's been since they began tracking it in 1991, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying this to you, there's more about home affordability than just the price, okay? You have to take into account your interest rate and you have to take into account your wages. Those are the factors that come into play when you're talking about house price affordability and buying power, right? Affordability is based upon not only the price, but also the interest rate that you're gonna pay in relation to your wage, okay? And people are just seem to be locked and focused in on price, and how price is going to be affected by the recession that the media keeps talking about, when they're not looking at the total picture and what it means for them. So is it time to actually maybe sell the larger house and maybe downsize because your kids are grown and they're off at college and you don't want to walk up and down the steps, or maybe you got grandkids. I don't know what the situation. Maybe it's time to downsize. Maybe you're in a different situation. Maybe you just had a baby. You're expecting another one and it's time to get a bigger house. I don't know. Maybe you're a first-time buyer, and you're looking to buy, or maybe you're looking at retiring and saying, hey, it's time to sell this house here and I'm going to relocate to the beach. I don't know what it is that your plan is, but what I'm saying is, one of the things that the experts and the economists are saying in relation to home pricing is that what's not going to be affected heavily is home prices in relation to any of this stuff, guys. So you want to look at your affordability from that standpoint. Again, these are all the resources. If you want the actual links, email me, Cassidy@CassidyCotton.com, or text me 702-561-3688, and I'll happily send these over to you. But because people always say, well, where are you getting all your information? I got two sheets of sources today, but people always saying, where are you getting your information? And I vet this information, I put it together. It's really kind of one of the things that I really enjoy doing. It's a trip looking at the camera instead of just reading my PowerPoint, but we're getting used to it. And nevertheless, guys, there's going to be a lot of wild stuff that happens. This is an upcoming election year. Half the country's going to say this is the greatest economy that's ever existed to man, and the other half is going to say this is the worst economy that we've ever experienced, and how in the world are we still alive? There's going to be a lot of crazy stuff that goes down, and what I'm going to say is, guys, let's stay focused on the fundamentals. Let's stay focused on what the numbers are saying. Let's stay focused on those details and not let headlines drive us crazy and drive our emotional decisions, that when it comes to real dollars and cents and what you're trying to achieve with real estate. So that's it, guys. This is September monthly market report. Cassidy Cotton, Simply Vegas. I love you and I'm out.